Welcome to Rules of Villainy, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to the competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This is episode 18. This week, we'll be joined by guest host Villainous Kirsten to discuss our experiences at the final Disney Lorcana Challenge of the 2024 season in Seattle. I'm Villain Vince, joined by my two co-hosts, as always, Villain Andy and the Mayor of Lorcana, Brad. How are we doing tonight?
Tired. I know I say it a lot, but it was a long weekend, man. Long weekend, but a great one for the podcast, for us, for Lorcana. Just thrilled. How about you, Andy?
Yeah.
Super excited to have been a part of the last DLC of the season. Tons of fun. A lot of fun being back in Seattle. Got to spend time with all of you. It was great.
What about you, Kirsten?
Just feeling wonderful and energized, and I mean tired at the same time, but also like I am very much looking forward to what they've got coming next year potentially. So I'll be ready.
I have taken a nap the last 2 days. I'm still catching up on everything.
I did absolutely no work tomorrow, so I already know no one in my job listens or watches. So no fear in saying that I did nothing yesterday.
You know, I mean, we were there just long enough to get used to the time zone in Seattle, and then just enough to mess you up when you got back.
Yes,
100%.
So it was, although I think Andy and Kirsten had the correct pathway of just getting a direct flight. Brad
oh my God.
The circuitous route, which was fine actually going there, not so bad. Coming back, it was kind of brutal.
Yes.
I believe it.
Yeah, I was happy with the time we got it.
Then I was obligated in between each place to, and during my layover, to spend extra money on terrible food that was just like not sustaining me at all. Just like, okay, I just spent $15 on this burrito that was not good, and I'm just even more mad now to wait another hour and a half.
Yeah, it was actually particularly brutal because like my flight to connected in Denver from Seattle to St. Louis.
Yep.
And I literally got off we were late coming in to Denver. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have to now rush to my gate. I get out, I look up, the gate is the exact same. The same plane I got off on in Denver is the same plane I boarded to get back to St. Louis. I was like, what is this? But that's all right. You live and you learn.
Have to get off.
Yeah,
stay there.
Yeah, can I just stay on the plane?
You know what? Before you move on, what really rejuvenated me the last couple days, Vince and team, we got a reveal for Gantu.
Yeah, new Gantu card.
It looks
That
good.
Cool.
Just had to shout out for Gantu, you know.
I tell you, I'll just tell this story real quick right now. Is that we also met somebody at the DLC that is also like us, collecting all these Gantu cards, or like me, you know, for the one day at that legendary Gantu, you know, shoots to the moon. Isn't that what the kids say? The Stonks bros say?
To the moon.
We'll have to ask Gantu about his new card. We have him on tonight, I think, right?
Yeah. He'll get another shout out for sure.
Well, let's get into Underworld news. And as always, we're going to have our PSA to please go vote. The election is next Tuesday. This episode will come out on Friday. And so you've got just a few more days to make sure that your voice is heard in the United States, to make sure that you're voting the presidential election. But also there are a lot of important races on the ballot, depending on the state you're in, from governor, Senate, House of Representative, even local elections, which can a lot of times affect your lives even more. And it's super important that you make a plan to go vote. I'm planning to go vote tomorrow. So that'll be Thursday. We get to early vote here in Missouri. Well, I think they call it like like no excuse absentee balloting. But making sure to definitely find where your polling place is, make a plan to vote, and also drag a friend with you if they don't have a plan to vote.
That's what I was going to say. You and your like-minded friends, it's so important to get out there and do your duty for the country and for your well-being. So very important. Please do.
This election is super close, and so your vote is definitely going to be super, super important to deciding the results.
And remember, vote Brad for mayor of Lorcana.
That's right.
He's not on this ballot, but maybe one day.
Write him in.
Don't write him
Write
in.
him in.
Don't write him in. Please don't take
Don't
that
say
advice.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
do not
Maybe
do
cut
that.
Listen, there are you can criticize. I'll just say this. So I'll put on the hat here that I do work in politics. I don't want to talk too much about my personal life on this, but is that you can be mad at the two-party system. You can have totally opinions, but I'm just going to tell you straight up, if you want your vote to count, there really are two choices on the ballot. And you just got to pick one and pick the one that aligns most with you. And that's pretty much true in every election up and down the ballot, except maybe when you get to like school board races or races that you can vote for, multiple candidates to fill seats and stuff. But for the big ones like Senate, President, House of Representatives, they're almost always just two candidates to choose from that have a realistic shot of winning the election. And that's just kind of the way that American elections work.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
there's only one person on the ballot that has a realistic shot of winning the election for mayor of Lorcana, and it's Brad.
Let's go.
All right. Well, with that, Brad, do you want to tell us about the cool little guest appearance that happened earlier this week?
Yeah, we did. A couple weeks ago, we worked with Katie at the Lore Keepers Inn on YouTube. Really sweet girl. We've watched her content. I've talked about her content on here before as well, regarding sealed and draft tournaments, things to look out for. She's always looking out for the player and doing a lot of fun things on her channel with watching the Disney movies with a friend and going over, some of the things that she found interesting about it. And it's a lot of people on there you can connect with and have a good time and enjoy. And we happened to do a night where we ranked the villains in not only the Disney movies, but the ones that exist in the game, and had a great time doing it. It was me, Andy, and Kirsten, because Vince couldn't get his audio to work on that application for whatever reason that night. But we had a great time ranking them. We encourage you to go check it out, find out or determine if we got them right, got them wrong, what you would do different, and give Katie a sub because she's great. She's great for the community. I wish I could have met her in Seattle, but she was actually touring Japan at the time. So doing a lot of cool stuff over there. I'm sure she'll share the details if you go check out her channel. And what did you think, Vince, as a viewer?
Well, we're going to link that in the show notes below. So if you're watching our YouTube channel, be sure to go over, give them a like and a subscribe, and watch that video. I commented, and I'll just say that I loved it. You all did a great job. Thank you, Kirsten, for stepping in for me. The only thing I have to complain about is the fact that you ranked Lady Tremaine not A tier villain, because she is an A tier villain, and Andy's just wrong about the fact that that's not a good card. It is a good card. It's a staple. That's why you see it on a lot of competitive decks. And I'm just saying that Andy is wrong. But that's not
as usual.
unusual.
Yeah.
But speaking though of tournament and competitive play, Andy, how did Seattle end up going?
Well, there were no decks with Lady Tremaine in the top two, but a huge shout out to Luke Goodwin, aka Wonderland, from Team Labyrinth TCG, with the, I think, as we all predicted, Emerald Steel deck. Not quite the exact same one Zan had, a little bit of spice. I think he gave a shout out to his teammate Bannable for coming up with the list. And also a shout out to the runner up, Sean. Was doing Amber Steel, a little more aggro Steel Song. Not quite as aggro as some of the other ones I think we saw in Top Cut, but definitely gave him a really, really good finals match. If you can find it online, go check it out. Again, huge congrats to Wonderland.
Yeah, it's a really great match. I think we were all there watching it live on the big screen, which is a really cool addition that they brought to the DLCs. And it was just a great match. Also, just great sportsmanship from both of them. I think they were like kind of joking through that last round. Andy, you want to talk a little bit about like what happened there?
I don't remember exactly why they were joking, but
there were moments. Well,
Well, there was the he wanted to
attack the Diablo instead. Instead of being all tense in there, they were like, "Hey, why don't you take this out instead?"
Instead of the Ursula Deceiver of All, I think is the card that he ultimately used the song on. So it just goes to show what a great community I think Lorcana has created overall. And we'll talk about more of that as we enter our main segment. But is there anything else? Any other news?
Yeah, speaking of the community, I saw on the social media that S'more is doing their S'more Awards for the Shimmering Sky set. So I highly suggest you pop on over to their Twitter channel, or I think we'll probably link the Google Forms below. They have a poll up for just some fun questions about your favorite cards in the set, some goofy questions about what the silliest cards may be, and just a fun little awards that they're going to be handing out. So I highly recommend going and submitting your opinions there.
Fun fact about them: I got one of their stickers from Seattle, but didn't actually meet them. Like that's somebody else was like, "Hey, you want one of these stickers?" I'm like, "Sure." Oh, S'morcana, I know you guys from Twitter. I've interacted with you, and like, well, I'm not actually them. They told me to give out some extra ones. I'm like, oh, okay. So it might have actually been Ryan. Ryan Hines that gave it to me.
Yeah. Andy was just showing for our audio listeners. Andy was just showing the sticker on screen here, and it is a very cool looking sticker, to be honest with you.
Nice. And what's really cool on their Twitter is every now and then they'll do a card that if you don't do any research on, it'll make you wonder if it was a real card or not. I think they got in a little bit of a tizzy with somebody else who mistook this card for real. But so then now they label it as cards we wish were real. But I told them a couple of weeks ago, I said, one of these days you are going to fool me. I'm not going to see that caption, and I'm going to believe that this is a real card, but it's not this day. It hasn't happened yet, but they do great stuff over there. I love them.
Speaking of fake card reveals, I'm sure Andy will gladly share the one that he shared in the Discord revolving me. And that was originally in our show notes. I was going to be the villain of the week that I immediately vetoed. That I was like, no. But we'll get into that here shortly.
I'll tell you what, if you want to see that card, join our Discord, and it will be there front and center for you to see. It's worth it.
Which the link to our Discord will be put down below.
We're going to get stickers of that made for our Patreon.
I think I can do that soon.
Yes.
So, getting into our DLC Seattle experience, I just want to start with recapping in our last episode, which, by the way, to our audio listeners, apologize, we had some potentially a little hiccup there. So hopefully you'll be hearing that episode shortly, or hopefully if you've listened to that just shortly before this. But we did make some predictions of the most decks. Our question that we had last week, apparently Brad was the only one that answered it correctly, but I'm just going to say that was a poor question, and that it should have been about the deck colors and not just which color was going to be played. But Brad said that it was
let's go
Sapphire Ruby, so he's our winner here. Andy said Emerald Steel, and I came up last, so I had no other choice but to say Amber Steel. And definitely am the loser of that group because Amber Steel came in fourth, I think, of the amount of decks. It made up 15% of the meta, and we were all kind of wrong about where Ruby Amethyst was going to place. We all kind of thought that it was going to fall off, and it ended up being the third most deck played. And honestly, the percentages weren't really that far off from the second place deck. Basically, second, through fourth, we're all kind of in 18, 16, and 15. Ruby Sapphire was really the out and away major deck, which it certainly felt that way in the matchups I had. But are any of you surprised about the makeup?
Not at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, I guess. I feel like Amber Steel felt like there was more of them. I mean, maybe it's just what I played or whatever, or what made day 2. I don't remember the conversion rates, if they even gave the conversion rates. I know they gave the numbers. I'm sure someone's done the math, but I think we talked about it last week that Amber Steel was surprisingly very, very popular over in the bigger tournaments in Europe. And I think I even said I didn't think it was going to be as popular given how popular Red Blue was. But it seemed to show up, and we saw it in the finals. It did really well. I think there was a mirror match, right? Amber Steel mirror match in the semifinals, I guess, right before the final, which was kind of interesting. A lot of different makeups of Emerald Steel. We saw green Amethyst Emerald fall off a lot, right? That's like not even on the list.
So it is on. It is not on the list for the day one metagame. It did have, did convert, so it must have converted actually pretty well. I mean, it had two folks go to top 64, but it's in like the 5% other for day one metagame. And which I think, like to Andy's point, just really does show the huge difference between the European meta and the North American meta. And I think it's actually just a good lesson for our listeners out there that, like, just because you see something really popping off in one continent, you know, there are a lot of differences. And so, you know, keep that in mind. Like, sure, take ideas, lessons learned, but, you know, the meta you're going to walk into is going to be very different depending on what region you're going to play in. And I'm curious to see, like, as the game expands more into, say, like the, you know, Asian market, whether we're going to see even more differentiations between, you know, kind of all three continents, if you will, firing off. So I'm really kind of excited to see where the game goes. And I'll tell you, the thing that surprises me the most, honestly, with this was just, again, how high Ruby Amethyst was. I really honestly thought, as a deck that I like to play, I know Kirsten, you like to play, Andy, you like to play, it was a deck we kind of all swore off relatively early in the set championships. And we transitioned to different decks. You kind of took the, you know, the rogue path, if you will. Not rogue path, actually. You took the like Xan highway, if you will, to Emerald Steel.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course.
And I decided to take the Ron and Justin path to Ruby Sapphire. Yeah. And Brad, you're always doing what you're doing. You're just out there.
You're doing your own category thing.
Yep. I ultimately I was on the fence up until Friday. The night before. Literally my decision was made. Unfortunately, as I played you, and as we practiced in the free play zone, I had Blurple built, I had Blue Steel built to combat all the Emerald Steel I expected to run into, and I had Steel Song built and double sleeved with puppies. And I was like, if I'm going to play Steel Song, I'm going to do it with style. And you were playing your Red Blue, and this was pre alters before the next day. But I was playing your Red Blue, and everything was just popping off. Everything was working. And I'm like, maybe this is the deck. This is a sign. I've been on Blurple the whole set. Might as well just go. As Humble told me on Twitter, he goes, go with where your heart is. And I said, okay, we're doing Blurple. And I kind of feel like after the weekend, I should have done Blue Steel on Saturday and Blurple on Sunday. And I'll give those details why later. But yeah, regardless of my 22-point record, I had a great time with it.
Yeah.
I'm not really surprised that Ruby Amethyst had that many players. I mean, I knew it was doing well. Like, after I dropped it, because I just wasn't doing well with it and I was getting frustrated, I was watching other people still make top cuts at, you know, the set championships. You know, I was watching the additional cards that were going in and out of, you know, the meta decks that were being built and tested. And it was definitely interesting. But at that point, I was so far deep in the Emerald Steel path that I was like, I shouldn't change, basically. Just ride this until Seattle and see how that goes, because I was already on it. I didn't want to.
Yeah, that's right. You shouldn't be making last minute changes. That's the lesson learned.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Brad,
I don't know why we're going to talk about that.
How did your deck Vince post alterations?
What's that?
Did you ever get a chance, Brad, to play against Vince after he made his alterations? You said earlier that
we didn't.
Whipped his butt before the alterations, but I mean, Vince made some really solid changes, I think, the night before that might have actually, you know, taken him to the victory against you.
Maybe. We'll never know. But the other thing to recap from last week was who would win? This is actually Andy's question. And Brad and I both said the rules of villainy, and I think we were successful there. Brad, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I said it in jest. I wanted one of us to top cut. I wanted one of us to win. I know we're a long ways from that as new players, but as I said last week, I believe in you guys, and I think that you have them. If the luck of the matchups and draws are behind you, you guys could pilot a good deck there. As a podcast, I think it was an incredible weekend from the moment we walked in there. People, as soon as I ran into Andy and Kirsten, they were like, yeah, people recognized us, and it didn't hit me until I sat down in that free play zone with you. Somebody came up and sat down and said rules of villainy, and I said, yeah, do you know it from the text on the cards or from the podcast? Like, your podcast, I've watched episodes of it. And then I sat there stunned. We've been doing this since July, and the fact that so many people were excited to come say hi, and other content creators that we've engaged with were excited to see us. And my third round person or second round person, I gave him a sticker. I was giving out stickers all day. And then his partner, somebody from his team, came running up to me a couple minutes later. Hey, can I get one of those stickers too? Like, everybody was so excited and so friendly. And, our subs on YouTube alone went up 10% over the weekend, and it's incredible to me. And if I keep talking, I'm going to cry. So I want to pass it off to Andy or Kirsten and see what you guys think about how your experience and all that.
I signed a Cobra Bubble.
Stuff.
I got to sign a mat.
To Glimminiers.
Yes.
Some of the nicest people I've ever met. I think they drove up there, just traveling across the country, having a good time.
Yep.
Yeah, from the East Coast, just chilling, having a good time. So friendly. They had a binder full of cards signed by just everyone they met. It was so awesome to meet not just them but everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I gave so many stickers out. There were people I went up to and I was like, "Hey, and they're like, "You've got a podcast. We met Vince and Brad, and we got 10 stickers."
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like awesome. Even Ryan Miller.
He sounded like he knew us.
I shook. It was it was really quick. He walked by, just shook his hand, and he immediately the podcast, right? And I'm like, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we did kind of swarm him though. Like, I think we all interacted with him. Like,
well,
it
was incidental. We weren't communicating with each other. True. So, anytime we would see him, one of us would probably walk by.
Listen, it is Ryan Miller though, too, right? So, I mean, the face of Lorcana,
remember us,
co-creator. One day we will get him on the show. But if you're a new listener, welcome. We appreciate you. We're glad you met us. Kirsten, do you want to talk a little bit more about your experience?
Yeah, I definitely had so much fun just meeting everybody. All of the other content creators are just so welcoming. I don't think we, on the other DLCs that we went to, we weren't really a podcast at the time at all. So we were just people walking around like normal people. But being able to just interact with them and being able to become friends with them and sit down and talk and watch the finals with Enchanted Kim and Sarah was so much fun.
Yep.
Just meeting everybody was so incredible. Everybody was so friendly, and I even got to sign a mat, and it wasn't even like one of the other content creators. It was my third round opponent. He was very, very nice. I gave him a sticker. I ran into him later, and he was like, "Oh, I was walking by. I think I was going to the bathroom. Walking by him, his friend, stopped me. He's like, my friend listens." And he was getting all of the content creators to sign his mat after, I guess the day of, playing the day before. And he asked me to sign his mat, so I signed it for us as Rules of Villainy. It was just really, really cool.
Great. Yeah.
Even Steve Warner has a mat that we all signed, and I saw a picture of it on his Twitter yesterday or today and was like, we're on that mat. Like, we can clearly see all of our names in the Rules of Villainy podcast, and was like, it's crazy, man.
It was a really
crazy,
really great experience. And I'm so glad we got to meet so many folks. And I'm also really excited for the amount of people we met that we've got some really exciting ideas for the future.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Mhm.
super stoked about that. But to get back to Andy's question and our predictions here, Andy didn't answer the question, although incidentally kind of did, because I said that it wasn't going to be somebody who won a previous DLC, and Andy was like, what about that, Ed or Zan? You listening out there? And so Zan nor Ed did make it to the final. We obviously got a new winner. So in that way, I was kind of right. I didn't predict that it was going to be.
That's an easy answer, though, in a field of 2,000 people, right? Like, we'll pick direct people.
Listen, I don't want to hear it. I'm right. Listen, I'm just going to take the win. I'm going to take the win where it is. Because who did you say, Brad? Who did you say, Brad?
I said our boy Zach Bivens.
Zach.
He was
Bivens.
due. He was due, but it wasn't his day.
It was not his
Said
day.
Luke.
I do think he did get he did make it into the getting a Let It Go, though. He had a good performance. So he got another Let It Go. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. I do think, though, he has an invite to Continentals, right?
Yep, he got a
Yeah,
pass down invite at one of the events. He was like, and that's what top seed in Swiss will get you. Is it gets you first dibs at that pass down invite.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I still think you have to do well, though, in day 2, because there's 64 folks. Like, I think you need to be making like top 32. But I was sure for sure, but I don't remember all of it, whether or not he had made
There's
it.
been a lot of Lorcana in the last 4 months of DLCs. So I don't remember.
Yes, I haven't tracked everybody's win. Although there is a content creator out there, I think it's a Lauren Kana who's doing this kind of Elo ranking thing, and so you can go and use her spreadsheet to like type in individuals' names and see where they are. Please don't look at mine. I'm not even going to tell you my username, but I'm sure somebody here will
Look
time
at
me
Kirsten's, though. Kirsten got probably a boost this weekend. He was already high up there from previous performances, and this weekend you did amazing as well.
I think actually Kirsten has the highest elo out of all 4 of us.
Absolutely, she does. Without a question.
Surprising. Yeah. And I have the lowest, but that's okay.
I was kind of surprised when I looked at my own name to be like, I'm in the top 1,000. I'm like 803.
But this weekend you started out 3-0, 4-0 before things started getting a little bit tougher.
3-0 before I started to like, dude.
By that point, I was at 2 draws and a total loss. So like I was rooting for you the entire time that I was sitting down at my next game. Like, all right, well at least Kirsten's got a chance here.
Well, I think that leads us right into the next segment here. Well, not next segment, but next question is, how did everybody do? We'll start with you, Brad.
As I alluded to earlier, I did okay. Nothing to write home about. I started off the day with a total loss against Ruby Sapphire. I don't know if I said it out loud, but I definitely held up 4 fingers earlier when we were talking about the amount of Ruby Sapphire, because I played it 4 times in the main event. First game, third game, and then my last 2 games in round 7 and 8. We intentionally drew the 8th game. I walked up to him and fist bumped him like, "Hey, I just need 3 points. Let's get those 20 points to get a few prize tickets, because I'm not making 30 this time." But ultimately, I had fun. I played the deck that I knew the best, that I played the most, and did what I could with it. Had some bad draws occasionally. First game against a guy named Max, he was really cool, and it just went his way. Second game, I had a draw against my only Emerald Steel matchup, the deck that I expected to see all day, and why I was regretting probably not playing Blue Steel. Really cool guy. He's the guy whose partner came up and won one of my stickers. I actually won that game on the draw. I didn't win both games, but when I was on the draw, I happened to get what I needed to pull out that entire draw. Next game was a draw on Ruby Sapphire. After that, after the break, we got a hyper aggro deck. If it was a best of 3, which is still a divisive thing here of whether or not it should be. I started on the play. I beat him. He of course beat me when he was on the play. If we had a best of 3, I feel like I could have taken that, because hyper aggro really excels on that on the play. And then my only win of the day came in round 5, which was against an Amber Steel Princess deck. And I'm not joking when I say this, and I felt bad. It was the worst experience of the day. in the sense that like he was such a cool guy. We were both at 16 points and really needed that, or we were both at 9 points, I think, and needed the 7 points to try to get the 16 and have a shot at maybe getting the 30. And it ultimately went my way. That Queen Sensor Core is a real pain in the butt. I couldn't find my Cuscos at times, but he was playing all my favorite cards like Big Cindy and Big Ariel, and I just happened to have, the ramp to play Hades and get rid of it, and then bounce it with Snake and play Hades again, and and it felt bad getting that 2-0, and then it felt even worse when I was like, do I give him a sticker to the podcast? And he goes, and he ultimately took it. He was nice. And his partner came over and was really supportive and everything as well. But he made a comment. He said, "Yeah, I'll take your sticker and probably leave you a hate comment." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." It felt bad, but it was my only win of the day. It's a competitive game. So I try to bay my emotions, but I got it. We were both in the same boat. We really needed that win. If I could have picked any other game, I would have, but it happened to be that one. Steel Song, I got O2'd by a guy dressed as Naveen, like full top to bottom. Really cool dude. Actually from Peoria, over on the Illinois side. Went to the same school my girlfriend did. Next 2 games were Ruby Sapphire, and it was an 0-2 and a 1-1, and then I drew. So ultimately on the day, 1, 3, and 5, 22 points. About what I expected playing Blurple, but ultimately it's what I knew, it's what I liked, it's what I played, and did what I could with it. Yeah. Who's next?
And Kirsten?
Well, it was quite a ride. I started out really strong. I had 3 2-0s in a row, and from there I just kind of fell off. I went 3 ties in a row, and then I really needed to secure a win, and I ended up getting O2'd by a very nice player. He was wonderful. We ran into each other a couple of different times, and I think all of you ended up talking to him at least once, I think. But from there, I ended up drawing my 8th round. Or not drawing, I ended up conceding my 8th round because we needed that win. We both needed that win to have a chance for the Let It Go. And I didn't think to obviously ask beforehand about the conceding if someone wins game 1. So once he gave game 1, I just told him he could have the win and that I conceded the second game so he had a chance. And then oddly enough, I ended up 2-0ing my last round, and it was against, I think, it was a friend of the person who O2'd me earlier in the day with an Emerald Steel, and very nice. They were both very nice, but it was really fun because he ended up coming over to check on his friend. And of course, I was very excited that, it's the guy I played earlier, and I asked him how he did, and he made day 2. So that was really cool.
Hey.
But yeah, I ended up 283rd overall. Pretty much about where I landed in Chicago, I think. Number wise, if you kind of double it, since there was more people in Seattle, but wish I would have improved and done a little bit better, but can't say that I'm that disappointed since I've never played a competitive TCG before. So I think I'm doing pretty good. I was up at the top tables for a little bit. I was like 3 people away from Kendall, so I was like, this is kind of cool. He had a swarm of people around him just standing around watching his game, and I'm just like, okay, I'm up here.
One of these days when we're not playing, we're going to be standing there watching you. Like I'm so impressed between Chicago and this that that you're doing better than all of us, and that's why I joke with Andy that you are the better half of that relationship.
It's true. Andy seems to do well in these like set championships, but then like when we go to these DLCs, you just wreck us all, put us all to shame.
Yeah, I think that's kind of weird too. Like. But I always do kind of average in the set champs. Like maybe I'll get one good set champ win or something here and there, but then I'm pretty decent at DLCs.
I think to speak for Andy a little bit here is to say it's probably because more folks run jank decks at set champs that Andy can kind of negotiate.
There's an argument there for sure.
And less at the DLCs, and so there's that. But Andy, tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, it was pretty mid. I played a single Ruby Sapphire at all the whole day. Now that I'm realizing it, when Brad said he played 4 of them, I think he got all of them. I played a lot of Amber Steel. Played a lot of Amber in general. I realized I wasn't very knowledgeable on the Amber Steel matchup with Green Steel. And I got O2'd by one of them in the middle rounds, which kind of just was like the nail in the coffin. I might have had some hope I was still playing. 1-1 the next one. I got a couple other wins in there. I think I finished like, I don't know, 3-2-4 or something like that. Not great. 32 points. I don't remember the record. You're looking at points in a 2-game format the whole time. Yeah. I had 32 points. So I think, right behind Kirsten, she had 37, right? So not that far behind. Did not have the greatest start. I think I was 2-0-2 at one point. And I was hoping I'd get paired up in. But I did get to meet him later. He signed my card for me. But pretty average day. I definitely could have done better than I actually did. While I really enjoyed like all of the extracurricular, if you will, stuff that we did, and I almost had more fun doing that than I did necessarily playing the game. I do think it definitely is hard to do both. I was making like fatigue mistakes in round 5 and 6 where I ideally shouldn't be making them at all, but definitely not sort of that early in the day. I think there was one game I forgot to quest with my big Diablo. Just didn't quest with him, didn't turn him sideways. I literally went to draw the card for turn and like got it off the pile, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, why is my Diablo not sideways? Like, you have to exert him? Like, of course I did that." And he was like, "You didn't do anything." And I was like, "Oh, I guess you're right." But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I wish I'd done better, but it is what it is. I did better than Vince.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to go right on to our favorite.
Come on, Vince. No. We gotta hear about your matchups.
Fine. So let me set the stage first, okay?
Great.
So play Blurple the day before with Brad. Brad talks about wrecks me. So I go back to my hotel room after we went out and had Katsu Burger and went to this great kind of hot pot place, just have some drinks, get back to my hotel, and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I think about it a little bit. I wake up early the next day, and I decide that I'm going to make some audible changes to my deck. So originally, I think I had like 62 cards in my deck, and I have my like little binder that I had with me, that I had all like the cards that I could think about. I laid them all out, and I started, okay, can I add this? Yes, let's do this. Let's do that. I think that I had like 80 cards in my deck, and I was like, that's too many. So I'm like, what cards can I cut? So I start cutting some cards. I'm like, how many Fishbone Quills do I need? I really want the Fang Crossbow in my deck. I really want Great Stone Dragon. I'm worried about locations. So I have like Hideaway, Cusco. What's the split there that I want and stuff. Ultimately, I arrive at 72 cards. Now, Andy will say that this is because we met Hamza, and Hamza said that we had 72 cards. Honestly, it really didn't have anything to do with that. Like, literally, I was just panicking like an hour beforehand. It was like, what am I going to do? And like literally had like 80 plus cards in my deck to like, and I was trying to like too many uninkables and stuff. And I settled on 72 cards, and I went up against 5 Ruby Sapphire decks, and my deck was originally really good into that matchup, and because I had teched it differently, I lost almost all of them. There's one I 2-0'd, but that they had like a really untraditional like Ruby Sapphire deck that had like Ariel in it and stuff, which is kind of cool, and I think that would work in some other matchups. Like my original deck would have actually probably had trouble with that deck, but given how I re-teched my deck, it was actually good for that matchup. was pretty much bad in everything. And yeah, I was not having a good time. Andy gave me trouble nonstop. And we're just gonna say that is a we don't talk about Vince card, which is don't play 72 cards, don't panic the day before, stick with the plan. Lesson learned.
Look,
Lesson learned.
you-
In comparison, just since you mentioned Hamza and his 72 card deck that we talked to on Friday night, he ended Saturday with 72 cards in first place in Swiss.
First place.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So quite the range of discrepancy there.
This
You
was
can do
last
it if
place
you're
in Swiss, I
Hamza.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the difference is
Think
like
about it
playing
first.
72 cards when you have really thought about all the play
All of
lines,
them, sure.
done the math behind it, and you're not panicking to do it and stuff. Like I didn't do it just because Hamza said like 72 cards is fine. I literally was
12.
trying to do it on a whim, and like that was the mistake. And so the
Mhm.
mistake isn't so
I'm-
much the card amount. The mistake was literally like an hour before submission, deciding that it would be a really great idea to change my deck. Maybe like 1 or 2 cards would have been fine, but not like
10.
adding 12, subtracting like 6 and stuff. Like I made some significant change. I might as well have just had Andy, Kirsten, or Brad hand me a deck without
Yeah.
knowing what it was and sat down at the table, and I probably would have had a better experience. To
Did
be
you
honest
try
with you.
altering, just like
Well-
drawing hands and seeing what you get and what you would mulligan or alter for?
I didn't have
or-
time.
Oh, you. Oh, right.
time
Yeah.
do I
You
have?
only had an hour.
Time
My
do
bad.
I
I'm sorry.
have?
You didn't even get coffee. You were late for coffee that morning, right? Or was that Sunday?
No, I was like, I didn't even get coffee, which was another mistake I made because I was so dead those first few rounds, and like definitely my game and performance got better after round 3, even though I still had some rough matchups and stuff, and that was just part of my deck. But my play got better because I was like more alert. I definitely need coffee in the morning for sure before I start. Like it's just I need it. I have it. It's an addiction.
Like there's no way it wasn't subliminal. That I mean, like Vince was standing there as I like grilled Hamza on Friday after I met him about 72 cards, and then promptly invited him on the podcast to enlighten the rest of our viewers as to why that actually might work. And then he certainly proved us all by not only taking second in Swiss at Vegas, but going first at Swiss and in Seattle there. And then I did catch up with Hamza again later and advised him that his musings have made my friend Vince panic add 12 cards to his Ruby Sapphire the night before, and he went, "Oh no!"
It had
He
no
said,
relevance.
"Oh no!"
It had no relevance and stuff. I mean, I know Andy likes to think that conversation had a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm really excited to have Hamza on. I want to hear more about the 72 cards and like the thinking behind it. The
Mhm.
real issue is just the panicking. Because like I said, like it's kind of incidental that I
Thinking
ended up at
behind it,
72
that's the key
cards.
part there.
It's
Yeah.
the fact that like I had,
So
80 some odd cards, and I was trying to think about the inkability. But I will say that I had a lot of great opponents that I really enjoyed playing with. Like I had a guy, my first round opponent, he was there with his daughter, and it was really great that PPG set it up so that they could sit together. So if you're out there, if you got kids and you're going to these DLCs, ask them to make an accommodation, and they will assign you a seat so that you can see your kids. So if you're worried, if your kids are going all over the place, you can ask them to make accommodations. Like him and his daughter had assigned seats all 9 rounds for Swiss. So they never moved. The opponents came to them. And so that they could, manage that. And I think she won her round and her dad won his round. So that was really great to see, father-daughter. And then I think it was in round 3, I played a gentleman. His name is Marcus. Which you all I think met at the end, and his son, he got in the game because of his son. And his son had done well, I think, in Toronto. And it's just really great to meet somebody. I like just ran into Marcus like probably a dozen times, or just like, hey, how you doing? And then, I mean, he wrecked me with his hyper aggro deck for sure. So it's really great to see like folks of all ages and men, women, kids, and adults and stuff just having a lot of fun playing this game, and honestly, really fantastic. I did do better than Chicago, though, I will say, even with this ridiculous deck, is because I had 20 points going into round 8. Whereas in Chicago, I needed the draw in round 9 in order to get 20 points. And I was really hoping my 9th round opponent would have been like, I was dead. I was done. I was really hoping she would just, we would just draw. But she's like, I flew from New Hampshire. And I was like, I feel like I need to play you. I felt like you've come a long way from New Hampshire to Seattle. So we played. She beat me 2-0, which is fine. I'm like
shocked.
I know, right? But
you got 20 points, Vince, but like a third of those were free, weren't they?
No.
How many 2-0s did you get for your opponent not showing up?
I didn't get any 2-0s from my opponent not showing up. Yeah,
I thought that happened once somewhere.
Mm-mm.
Oh
no! His opponent was late, got a game loss,
my opponent
showed up,
was late,
played
got
2 turns and quit.
She didn't play 2 turns and quit. She had another event to go to, but I was going to win that match anyway, so it wasn't really a big deal.
I had to go see Phantom 3.
Okay, right.
No, I think they had a sealed event to go to or something. I don't know. They had another event that happens, but that was the only time that happened during the entire event. All the rest of my opponents showed up and we played matches and stuff. So
Before we
get, Andy likes to try to dig, but
that's a good
digging
segue.
himself a little deeper into the hole.
That's a good segue because before we get too far away from it, I need to ask Andy how many cards he played in the main event.
62.
62? What?
Yes, sir. 62.
You couldn't remove 2 cards from your deck?
Yeah. I felt that I needed the 2 additional coves.
Oh, no, you didn't.
And I couldn't sacrifice a Tinkerbell or an Anna for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now we know why Kirsten did better because she just kept the deck as is.
Trust the Zan.
She trusted the Zan. You thought you were better than
the trust the Zan.
Zan did better Zan things and made it different.
Yeah.
He probably assumed scrubs like me were just gonna copy him. So he's like, I'm gonna whip out the real shit now, real stuff now for the next one.
I got Zan to sign a Muses card. That was really exciting.
Oh, I didn't get him to sign anything. I did meet him, but I didn't.
I thought you said you beat him. I'm like, what? No, you didn't.
No, I was nowhere close. I was at the bottom tier. Zan's over table 1, and I'm over on table 900.
I was table 9 at one point. That was pretty fun.
But
I did watch Zan and Moyen playing at the free play tables. It was like this monumental EU versus NA moment, and they were just messing around at the free tables. It was the free tables towards the later end of the night, and day 2 became super hot, like the top tables basically during Swiss. There was crowds of people going around. You had Spessy, Alphos, Moyen, Zan, Bivens. They were all over there just playing games, testing stuff out. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, this will get us into what was your favorite experience or story that you had in this event. And we'll start off with you, Kirsten.
Well, mine directly ties into my only real O2 of the game because I don't want to count my concession as a real O2 because I was just I want you to have a chance at the Let It Go because at that point, if we drew, neither of us had it. So, after I got O2'd by the Emerald Steel, which, by the way, was a kind of fun Emerald Steel. It was non-traditional. It had Chris Merfolk and Fang City, I think.
Yes, I love that card.
He inked that at one point, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Until I went back and evasive,
and looked at his deck list. But anyway, he was a very, very fun opponent. We were both having fun. He kind of played the same way that I did because I don't like playing the Emerald Steel discard. So anytime he was really going ham at discarding my hands, because obviously he still has discard in his, he was just like, I'm so sorry. He was very apologetic, and I feel like I do that a lot too, where I'm like, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to do this. This seems so mean.
Yeah.
But we were just having a really good time. But obviously I was disappointed after I lost. And I mean, I lost fast too. So like I was probably one of the first people to probably get up and be done with my game. And as soon as I got up, I was just walking around. I didn't want to have a repeat of Chicago where I just ran to the bathroom and cried about losing. So I was trying to be more positive about it. And I immediately spot Ryan Miller. So I'm like, ooh, there's nobody there. I need to go talk to him because I hadn't gotten to really talk to him. I think maybe we had no, he was next to Steve Warner. We only had the meet and greet for Steve Warner. But either way, I walked up to him and I just started chatting to him about the podcast and how much fun, I have playing Lorcana and how many friends we've made just being in the community. Exactly. Like just telling him about our, some of our stories. And I just so happened to bring up the the local like second chance set championships that we have done. And we were just kind of chatting about that. And he thought it was so cool. He loved our podcast, thought it was really cool that we did it, loves that we're a part of the community. And he actually just reached into his pocket and asked if I give you a special card, would you give it away at the like next event that you do? So he gave me one of the like super fancy Mickey promos from D23, and it was signed. And I was like, yeah, duh. I was like, oh my goodness.
It's incredible.
I didn't know what to do. I was like speechless for a couple seconds. He had to go, and I'm just walking around with his bear card in my hand. And eventually I walk up to somebody. I don't even know who I walked up to, but he was like, you should put that in a sleeve. And I'm like, I should put this in a sleeve. So that was definitely my highlight. And I'm really kind of happy that I lost super fast. I mean, I would have liked that if I had won really fast. But again, that's fine. It's fine. He got day 2. I'm really happy for him. He was really nice. But it ultimately led to me meeting Ryan Miller and having that, one-on-one experience of me not having to stand in line and do all of that waiting and things like that. But I just had to I got to have a fun conversation, and he also donated a very fun prize to our community. So now we can officially say that we have a prize donated directly from Ryan Miller for our event.
Yeah, which is super exciting. And I think it's so funny that Andy, having heard that, found Ryan Miller later and then thanked him. And then I, not knowing that Andy had done that, found Ryan Miller again and was like, hey, I want to thank you. He's like, oh yeah, the podcast. I'm so glad you're doing it for the community. It was so great that he did that. Brad, what's your story?
So nice.
That's a good segue into mine. One of my biggest regrets in Atlanta was Ryan Miller was walking around. I tried to get in line to meet him before the main event on Saturday, and he had to move, and we had to get started for the player meeting. And then throughout the day, he was, having lines to meet, and I never got to meet him. And so my plan was on Sunday, like, hey, I'm going to meet him. It's his videos, his interviews, going into the game at launch, like how I learned the game. And I loved his energy. I love the passion. He just exuberates for the game when he's talking about it. And I couldn't wait to meet him. And because of a big fiasco with Melee being down on second day, I got to say hi as he walked by, but I never got to shake his hand to get a signature or whatever. And I was really bummed. And then he didn't come to Chicago. I didn't go to any other DLCs until Seattle. And then they had a lottery for the meet and greet for Steve and Ryan, and I didn't win either of those. And I'm like, I'm just not destined to meet this guy. Turns out on Friday when I showed up around noon, or a little bit after noon, maybe like 1 or 1:30, he didn't really have a line. People were still getting acclimated with everything, still getting checked in, still, people still flying in, haven't even been there yet, and side events are happening, and I see you. I talked to Andy and Kirsten, and then I see you over there just talking to Steve, and I walk up, and there's nobody there, so I could just walk up and meet Ryan Miller, and and from that moment on, I'm like, okay, this weekend's going to be great. I talked to him, I told him about the podcast, I gave him a sticker, and as Kirsten said, she talked to him. We talked to him multiple times throughout the thing, and he signed. He signed the foil Brave Little Taylor. Is the card I decided to bring because like the mascot of the game, right? I think it's a beautiful card. I love the art on it. I don't see it in play a lot. I'd love to play it more, but it's like that's going to be the card I think that would best get signed. And then right next to him was Steve Warner. I walked right over, had him sign it too, and And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. And so immediately I'm just like making like core memories about this thing and absolutely love that. And then what I loved and what Kirsten touched on is that throughout the day, like he's just, when he sees kids, especially local kids like Mikey and Tyler, who we know from Grapes and all the whole circuit here in St. Louis, just walking up to them and giving them stuff, and and it was the most incredible thing. They have a mascot at Ravensburger that's Hey Hey, and Steve Warner just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm looking for some Hey Hey cards, and I'll give you these for them if they were face down." The way that I heard the story, and I'm sorry if I'm mowing anybody's lawn if this is somebody else's, Andy's or your story to tell, but he's like, if you give me some Hey Heys, I'll give you these cards. And it was 2 of those Sorcerer Mickeys from D23. Like after they did the trade, they're like, holy cow, these are $200 cards.
Clear. Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say they're like $200, $190.
I know that's kind of why I was like in shock.
I also just want to add for Brad here. Brad's missing out that but of course, listeners may not know this, but Brad can sometimes be like, "Oh, should I go do this and stuff?" But our community members will know this and stuff. And there was no, and I was like, "Brad, just go over there and say hi to Ryan Miller."
Look,
I was so nervous. I didn't know what to say. Like I can talk to anybody,
but you got me in trouble. You definitely aren't supposed to do that. You were like, you can just walk over. Like, if the line's not there, Brad just walked up. He didn't have an appointment. And so I just went over there and was like, I don't have an appointment for Ryan Miller, but I'm just going to walk up like Vincent Brad said. And then I got denied. They were like, nope, appointment only.
I did get denied later when I tried to see the artist, but there was
the way that worked is that one, I was the girl that was manning the desk, if you will, and stuff. Super, super nice. I'm like, I just should be like, "Oh, you again?" So, but I had an appointment. I was early for an appointment to somebody else, and I was like, "There's no line for Ryan Miller. Do you mind if I just go say hi to Ryan Miller?" And she was like, "Fine, go ahead." And so,
and then I saw
Brad. Brad saw me, and I was like, "Come on, come up here."
She got in trouble for that, and she stopped that for the rest of the way.
Probably, yeah, because
more strict about it because
I don't know. I mean, I got in to see Julie Vu on not my appointment either because I just asked her if I could. I was like, "Hey, I messed up. I accidentally scheduled my time for Julie Vu," which is true for Saturday when I thought it was supposed to be Sunday. And y'all both know that I really wanted that spell book signed.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Come see me once I get everybody checked in for that. And I'll see if I can fit you in." And she did. So I think sometimes
towards
so I
the
do
end.
think in some cases, it's just one of those things. But what about you, Andy? What was your experience?
I mean, I really enjoyed everyone I met. I think I said it before. I'm probably repeating things that everyone else said. I made a fool of myself with every single pro player, if you will, that I met. Spessy probably hates me.
Facts.
Moyen thinks I'm weird. Zan has no clue who I am. Zan, Ed, and Zach all probably have no clue who I am, but I've said hi to them like we're best friends, and asked them for pictures. But I did get Moyen to sign his favorite card, the Donald Duck high slinger. It was actually fun. I had that card and the Mufasa that him and Podcana revealed, and Judy Hopps, which I know he hates. And so I showed them all to him, and I said, "I'd love for you to sign a card. I brought a couple of them for you to choose from. I figured, whichever one you kind of like more." And I gave him the Mufasa at first, and I said, "I was really wanting you, Brandon, and Kawa to sign this, the whole gang." And he said, "We're never all in the same room at the same time." But he says, I'll do the Donald, because he goes, "Judy Hopps, hate that card. Mufasa, hate that card too." He's like, "I love that we got to reveal it. I hate that card." And he's a big Donald Duck fan. I remember him saying that on the podcast. So it's really cool to meet him. And like I said, watch him and Zan play this epic, just two normal guys playing, but it's top EU, top NA players, battling it out. I think Dan had said he really wanted to see how Moyen's blue steel no wheel. I think it's similar to Sky's list, with the Chicha and Shenpo and stuff, I think, in there. A really interesting list. Moyen, I think, third in Swiss. Was really rooting for him. I don't think he qualified for NA, which is a bummer. So we won't see him back on this side of the pond until Worlds. But yeah, I just really enjoyed all the people I met. I met so many people. I can't even remember who they are to shout out. We're gonna have a bunch of them on the podcast. We've got a guest list a mile long now of some great people that we want to introduce to you guys and hang out with and discuss stuff. I think watching the event was awesome. I think I told Kirsten as we were walking away that like this is the spectator sport. Like I will go to Worlds and pay money to sit in a seat and like watch these matches. Especially when Luke won, having his whole team there from Lab like cheer him on. It was, I thought that they were gonna like lift him up in the air and like crowd surf him and stuff, but everyone chanting and things. It was a really great experience to be there. Can't wait for Worlds.
Definitely has an esports feel to it in that regard.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of fun being in that room while that happened live, and feeling the energy of all those people being so excited for them. Even not even just for Luke, but for Sean too, and seeing their interactions afterwards and how friendly they were and excited for each other. It's just really wonderful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like, both of you, which I think, not my favorite experience, but like determined to make sure that one of us left with that the playmat for 90 tickets and stuff. And I was like interrupting Brad as he's playing, like, give me your tickets. It's like they need him, and he's like, but wait, I haven't figured out what I'm going to use them for. I was like, I don't care, give them to me. It's like I'll figure it out.
So
thank you for the help.
On that funny story, I was tired of playing Green Steel because we played it main event and then we played it in the big competitive side event on Sunday, and I didn't do great in that one either. I missed top 32 by probably one game, but still I was done on that, and I had brought some of you guys, longtime listeners, will know Boo Hunter. It was actually Yay Hunter this time. I feel like I did him a solid. We booed him enough that I tweaked a little his Princess Queen deck there, and I put it together, and I figured, you know what, when I'm burned out on whatever I'm playing, I'll play this deck. And we needed it was, I guess, 3 tickets, technically 2 tickets we needed to get the playmat. So I'd signed up for an on-demand constructed, and I sit down, and the way it works is you get 1 ticket for participation, and it's single elimination. So if you win the first game, you get 2 more tickets. And so I really just needed to win 1 game. And we sit down, and there's 8 people in this pod. And who do I sit down across from? Is our friend Gilbert, who went to day 2 and beat Kirsten earlier 2-0. And I'm like, oh, cool. And the couple next to me is talking with another guy about how they made day 2. And the one guy, dressed as Pete, games referee, says he has a golden Mickey already. And I'm like, oh, cool. I just need 2 tickets. This is great. I'm fine. I'm not playing a queen deck. It's all right. This isn't a meme. And luckily, I don't know. I'm sure this guy was great. I don't mean to like belittle my opponent in this match, but luckily I didn't match into any of the people who openly admitted to having a golden Mickey. And so it was a red-blue matchup, my only one of the day, and I was playing insanely fast. I was just basically channeling my inner hunter, playing as fast as I could, playing a meme deck, and it was, Ruby Sapphire. So they pretty much didn't have a chance. I steamrolled them. They bricked the first game a little bit. The second game, I had 3 Queen sensor cores that came out. Either way, I had a judge called on me twice. I called it on myself, but I messed up twice, like big egregious mistakes because I'm just going insanely fast. Kirsten is like waving her hand at me as I'm like trying to finish the match, calling me
because her and I sat down to play a pack rush because
Mhm.
she was like, I'm not playing a constructed event, which I was like, fine. I was like, well, let's do a pack rush because that guaranteed us, I think, was it 3 tickets or 2
3
I think
tickets,
3
yeah.
tickets, and we
Three.
thought
Yeah.
that we had with his one entry enough
Yeah.
in 90
Yeah.
total. So
But
we grabbed
you're
his one
counting
entry.
the
I'm in
tickets in line,
line.
right?
I'm in line. He's like, he handed me all the tickets. He's like, this is 90, get in line. I got to finish this other thing that I signed up for because he got his one ticket for entry. So I'm in line counting and it's 89. I count again, 89. I count a third time, it's 89. And I'm just like freaking out. I call him. I'm like, it's 89. I need another ticket. And he's like, well, I have to get the tickets from the people. I won my game. I have more tickets, but I have to get it. So I'm like 2 people away. I'm starting to panic. I let the person behind me go in front of me while he's trying to figure out the situation with his tickets. So I don't know what magic you worked to get your tickets.
They told me that because it was single elimination and I had the opportunity to win more tickets, it's not like the regular ones where they put the tickets in between you and the winner like takes them and walks away. They're basically like, well, we don't know how many tickets you have, so like we can't give you like the 2 tickets you won here because if you win this match, then we're giving you 5 tickets instead. And then if you win that, so I'm like, well, what if I lose? And he's like, well, then you get 2 tickets. And I'm like, okay, well, I concede. I lose. Can I have my tickets now? And the judge was very, very nice. And, he's like, well, that's fine. That it was really just a matter of making sure everything fit onto the form and the proper way to do it. And I grabbed my 2 tickets and I ran over and we were able to get the mat and it looks awesome. And then we got Steve Warner to sign it, which was really cool.
Because he just walked by at the end.
I didn't even mean to like
and I was like,
ambush
oh my
him.
God, Steve Warner. And he was like, we were like, can we sign it? And I was like asking Kirsten, I was like, do you want him to sign it? And, I think you 2 looked at each other and you were like, fine. And he's like, I'll sign it. But he's like, I don't want a line. And so like, I get up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a bodyguard right here to make sure that nobody is like ambushes him and stuff. And he signed it, which is really cool. And I was mostly nervous because I was so worried that they were going to sell out of the match, which is why I was like super on it. And Andy's like, oh, they'll have plenty of mats. And even when you guys went up there, they had a lot, but they did run out of the play mats.
And I'm definitely glad I got in line and did that when I did, because by the time that we did whatever we did, I don't remember at what point that I realized it, but the line was just so massive for the prize wall. I was just like, I'm very glad that I got in that line when I did.
They had like the Disney World style.
Yeah, line ends here.
Line ends here, so that you knew where the end of the line was. It was like a moving target. It was crazy.
I just want to touch on Vince being a bodyguard. If you were a bodyguard, you're Baloo. Big old teddy bear, big old teddy bear that doesn't hit for anything. Yeah.
And you always gain 2 lore.
Listen. That's a. I may look like a teddy bear, but you know what? Bears can be vicious when they need to be. Watch
out.
But I will say, my favorite story by far is I love meeting all the content creators. That was awesome, especially B Squared, who I had. Like, you all kind of like kept him while you're like, come meet him. Like, we've got him and stuff. And we got him a bucket hat. And I really appreciate
felony for that. We were keeping him there way too long. He was
you were like kidnapping him a little bit. I felt a little bit.
Do you know the backstory behind how I got that and how I got him there?
No, did you message him?
So I came out of the bathroom and I spotted Rebecca and I was like, I'll just ask her if she may know where he's around. So I'm like, do you by any chance know where B Squared may be? And she's like, you know what? I don't. And then she just looked around. She goes, oh, he's actually right there. And I'm like, great, thanks. And I booked it over there. And I grabbed Andy. We talked to him for a little bit. And we're like, we got to get Vince.
The next thing I know is like, I get like Brad be like, come with the hat now. And I like just booked it over there as fast as I could. But it was nice to get to meet him because he's one of the first content creators. But really, honestly, it was meeting the artists. I mean, just getting a chance to talk to Julie Vu, Kendall Hale, and Brian Weiss. You know, it's like I kind of talked to them a lot about like the art is really what originally attracted me to the game. And I never thought I would play it. Like I thought I was just going to be a collector. I saw how big it was at Gen Con. And like honestly, like I didn't know any of the game stores in the St. Louis area except for Miniature Market because I had gotten board games there. And so that's where I went to get Lorcana. They had like a learn to play. And I'm explaining this all to them, like telling them the story about how I got into it and like how I met you all through going to all these game stores. And now we have this podcast and, you know, giving them the stickers and stuff. And just, you know, hearing their stories about like how they got into making art. And like, you know, Brian Weiss was talking about how, particularly with like the snake card, the Madame M snake, like, you know, they'll get briefs from Disney, you know, on how to do it and send some things back. But like if you watch the movie, you never see Madame M snake head on. You only see her side profile. And so he was like, it's really cool to like get this unique kind of aspect of her, you know, and she's not in that form for very long because it's during their big bat, you know, and so they, you know, are switching forms all the time. And so really kind of getting their the artist perspective on how they create this and, you know, the back and forth they go with the team, you know, at Disney and Ravensburger. And in particular, Brian was like, you know, I never thought in a wildest dream, you know, I would get this opportunity. And like his portfolio got him through the whole process to, you know, become an artist. Like they found him, he didn't find them. And as a result of doing the work with this, he's doing work for Disney Animation, which is like a lifelong dream for him. So I thought it was just so cool to hear. Cause like, honestly, like, I mean, it's so many people do a lot of work for this game, whether, you know, Ryan and Steve, you know, being the kind of face and co-creators of the game, the developers that we were playing, you know, in the pack rushes and stuff that are, you know, writing new card texts and card flavors and stuff, and the artists who bring those cards to life that ultimately make this game so fun to play and like really appeal to all our kind of like Disney adult you know, things and stuff. It's just so great. And it's such a great opportunity to really hear their experience and like the process of being an artist. And like, honestly, it really makes me want to have an artist on our show someday to talk about that. Cause I think that'd be really fun and stuff. And so, yeah, that really honestly was the like knockout standout for me and stuff. It's like, it's hard to pick like the number one experience cause there's just so much great things there. But for me, really getting to meet the artist and really hearing that experience, it was so good because I just never thought like that, how intricate and stuff. Like I draw stick figures, you know, that's my extent of being an artist, right? And stuff, you know, they're doing amazing work. And I think I have, so like we got these, they did survive.
Yay!
Flat and intact here, but you know, so here's some of the like things they were able to sign to.
Nice.
So it's really exciting.
If you're listening, Brian and Julie and Kendall or any other artists, hit us up. I think it would be. I agree with Vince. That would be super awesome to be able to talk with an artist. And
I think Kendall follows our Twitter now, right?
He does. Yep, he does.
Yeah.
They all three got stickers too, and they were excited about it. Brian, I second what Vince said. They were all extremely great to talk to, but the passion that Brian conveyed about doing it, and he was very into what he was doing, and I enjoyed meeting all of them, and I can't wait to get more cards signed by future artists at more events because I'm now on a mission to get all the Sword and the Stones cards in the game signed because that's all I did this time because they all three had at least one, and yeah, super exciting.
I need to meet Brian once again, so that I can get two more snake signed, so that I can have.
So you gotta get a playset signed
for my Ruby Amethyst time.
Well, so this was our second DLC. My second, your third, right? Yep. All three of you went to so you went to Atlanta, and then Chicago, and then Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what do we think about the evolution of the DLC from the beginning to where it ended? You know, what has been great and what has what do you think still maybe needs some improvement?
I'm gonna go first because it's probably gonna be the shortest. But I think that from my perspective, just watching them get better with each one that I've attended has been really nice. Um, Obviously they're very much listening to the players' feedbacks and everybody who's attending. They're taking all of those things into account when they're going forward and going on to the next event. So like I said earlier, I'm very excited for what they're going to do next year. As far as like, I don't have any real complaints. I've never been to any other types of events, so the complaints that I had from Atlanta, I didn't have any complaints in Seattle. I thought everything was great, ran smoothly. I know that a lot of people don't really like the best of two format. I don't have any experience enough to like touch base on that. I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I will do whatever anybody tells me to do. If you tell me to play best of two, I will do that. Thank you. Goodbye. And that's about it. But I just really like that they're obviously listening. They're taking account what the players are saying, how they feel about all of the complaints that started in Atlanta. And I think that, from Atlanta to Chicago to Seattle, I think Seattle is definitely the best one.
Yeah, Andy, Brad.
I think I completely agree. I think the fact that they're listening is probably the most awesome thing. The fact that I can see, feel, touch like a tangible change from the first to the last DLC. And I missed a few in the middle, but just everything about it is really awesome. I think any complaints that I could even conjure up or think about, it seems really difficult for me to think that they sort of they don't already know this kind of stuff, right? There's small production glitches that they can improve there. There's that live viewing experience that they just added in Vegas and had in Seattle and stuff that they can certainly iterate on. I think a lot of people say more DLCs, please, like in more areas, like just instead of 6 in a year, let's have 20 or whatever, So I think a lot of the things, a lot of the criticism, if you will, or improvements are pretty obvious. And I trust that Ravensburger sees them, and it's really just a matter of growing up and adding more one step at a time as someone who's, done certainly not DLCs and starting our whole card game and stuff like that, but like some of the live production that we've done and the small iterations we've made, and the work that goes into just a 2 or 3 person streaming of a 30-person event here in Seattle or St. Louis is insane, right? Like it so I'm very, very happy with everything that I've experienced from the first to the last DLC. Excited for more.
Yeah, same. Go ahead.
I think is great, honestly. Like I think Andy's right. There's I'm sure they're going to do it. Like space probably is the big thing, right? Having, the production and top tables away from the viewing area was probably like not ideal, but like I think they know that. And they're really great at feedback. And honestly, I can't give enough kudos to Ravensburger for how well, and PPG for how well the events have run from even from Chicago, which from what I understand was a market improvement on even Atlanta.
Correct.
To today, to like just how well the tournaments are running, all the ability of the side events, honestly, adding the constructed competitive, which was something people asked for, and they did. Not only did they added even more of it. Like I think way more than even folks expected they were going to add. And honestly, like if I had any suggestion of that, is like more of that. Like I would love to see, like they did Pack Rush. I would love to see like competitive multiplayer or these other kind of like two-headed dragon stuff. I think that would be kind of cool. Like, more that would be maybe an addition. I saw some of that being done at Gen Con. So that, hopefully maybe some of that comes in the future. I'm just really excited. And then overall just reminds me how much I love this game, because you've got a great community experience and you've got a company that's really listening to the feedback of the players and attendees to improve the experience. So I have no expectation, like very little frustration, and I expect it's only going to get better as it goes on. Sorry to cut you off, Brad.
Oh, you're fine. You guys covered pretty much everything I was going to say. From Atlanta to Seattle was night and day difference, and as you touched on, since you didn't experience Atlanta, was Atlanta to Chicago was a night and day difference. And any complaints I would have had about Seattle, again, I missed the same ones Andy did in between. If there were any complaints about Seattle, they were circumstantial. There were a couple rounds where there was like a half an hour delay before the next round fired off because they needed to find somebody, and they, in a way, it's a good thing. They were really forgiving in not just dropping them from the tournament that late, right? Or I don't know the situation, but there were times where like, okay, let's get the next round going. We still got 3 more rounds of this, and there was one time where it was like a 30 to 40 minute wait, and I'm like, everybody was a little restless, but again, circumstance.
Yeah, Starbucks. Sorry.
No, but yeah,
I mean, I needed that coffee between round 3 and 4. Okay, you have to excuse me. That's my thing. Make sure you like have coffee like readily available everywhere, even closer. No,
and that's a good that's a good thing to mention as well, is that the food choices were much better in Seattle too. Like we both were in Chicago, and then that cafeteria style, whatever that was, and it was projected, or I think it was from the hotel itself, but I feel like they've improved, at least from Chicago to Atlanta. I can't speak to the others. That I was happy with my little pizza that came from that convention center. So yeah. But yeah, again, it's all circumstantial. Maybe they can't control what the food options are at these venues and everything. And then the wait times and all that. I don't have any real complaints about it. You can argue the 2 or 3 game format, and that's going to be a divisive topic for years to come. Whether they do or they don't keep it, So, and as Kirsten, just like Kirsten, I will play in either one of them because, as all of us, I love this game. I love the community, and I'm going to continue playing. So.
9 rounds, best of 7.
Honestly, my biggest thing is like are really nitpicks and things I'd like to see. I just think it was phenomenal. I walked away like, sometimes in these games, I think we can all relate. Like you get burnt out a little bit. And honestly, like I left Seattle more excited about what the future is for Disney Lorcana and our content coming out and the community. Like just so much more excited. Like I'm like, maybe thinking it's like, can I make it to Continentals? Like, do I have the money to be able to do that? Can I do
that? Thinking about it.
I already asked Andy, I'm like, can we miss your
I'm taking
wedding? Like, why?
I'm taking Emily to Disney World in February. It's unfortunate that Continentals is in January and Worlds is in March because we're planning a trip to Disney World in February, and I'm like, probably shouldn't do all 3. Probably shouldn't do both, but I'm thinking maybe January might be a fun trip. But we'll see where the
Worlds,
the cards lie.
We're gonna go to Worlds,
we'll see
for sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm definitely making a commitment to make Worlds unless disaster strikes. But
we're gonna drive again.
Road trip.
Oh my god, that is a long drive. But I might take you up on it.
Great shot.
It's worth it.
You can tell me how amazing Tesla is.
Yeah, you have to. I was gonna say you have to run the Tesla. Does that like?
I don't know if Vince can handle that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'll just be pretty open about it that I hate Elon Musk. So you like Elon Musk.
Well, there goes our chance of getting him on the podcast.
Great. There's our Twitter account.
Yeah, there goes.
Yeah. Anything else about Seattle that you all want to add?
I just want to give a couple quick shout outs to the cosplayers. Everybody was fantastic. We got a subscriber out Big Tink. We met Mindy. She was fantastic. She got a signed Enchanted Tink from Ryan and Steve. Another just great gesture from how great they are. The Smee is now a subscriber. There's a guy dressed as the Crabfoot Smee.
Smee is life.
Yeah, he is a subscriber now. He's fantastic. He helped me look for my water bottle that Kirsten will probably laugh about that I actually lost for about 6 hours on Sunday and found I just as a miracle. And so he kept an eye out for me. So thank you, sir, for doing that. Your cosplay was amazing. We met a beach Merlin on the beginning of the day on on Saturday. He was fantastic. I dug through one of the vendors, all his $1 stock to find a Merlin, Beach Merlin for him to sign. It turns out he had a whole case of foils that he was ready to sign for everybody. Yeah, just a huge stack. But he's got a shop in Canton, Freedom Hobby and Gaming. Great guy. I think his name was Thomas. Canton, Ohio. Yep, sorry. Yep, yeah, Canton, Ohio.
OH.
Yep, yeah, you're an Ohio boy, or at least school-wise. What other cosplayers? I played Naveen. I played a guy as ukulele player, Naveen. He was fantastic. Quentin, he signed my Naveen card for me. Just everybody we interacted with. There wasn't a single bad egg that I encountered. Everybody was in good spirits, had a great time, and just it was great. You know, shout out to all of you guys for making it so much fun, or even more fun than it is already going to be.
Yeah, great.
I think the food in Seattle is awesome. Just gonna say that.
Yeah,
great food.
Yeah,
sorry.
Specifically at More Fire.
Last thought.
Don't go
Yeah,
that was a More Fire was fire.
Yes, that was gonna be my statement.
I came very close to going there again on Wednesday.
Oh my god!
I was like, maybe I don't want to be that guy. I should also try something new, so I did.
Yeah,
but yeah, all right. And with that, our villain of the week.
Our apologies be again to this week's villain be John Silver, greediest treasure seeker from Set 3 into the Inklands. He's a dreamborn villain, alien pirate captain in the steel color. Rare, 3-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, quest for 1 lore. Ability, chart your own course. For each location you have in play, this character gains resist +1 and get 1+ lore. Flavor text. I was never much good at games, always hated to lose.
Art by Kumatori Gaku.
How
was that?
That was
perfect. Chef's kiss, sir.
Someone get this man an Oscar. I like how you always lift your shoulder up too when you're doing it.
Yeah, honestly, for our audio listeners, you definitely need to jump to the YouTube channel. Even if
I have no idea what it looked like. I was just in.
You gotta watch it. It's worth it. And while you're
So
there,
worth
give us a
it.
like and subscribe. All right. So, why is this our villain of the week? Kirsten, you want to tell us why?
Can I take it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have a ton of background other than my one suggestion.
So anybody listening to this podcast or are interested in the event this past weekend probably knows there was a top 64 deck that was a $53 deck of locations. It included this John Silver from set 3, in which, as I just read to you, whenever more locations are in play, he quests and he's impossible to deal with because of the resist if you're not equipped for it. My experience with this deck, aside from everybody talking about it when all the decks became public from the top 64, is the competitive construct that I entered in Sunday morning at 9 a.m. My first match was against a guy named Jerry, a really cool guy. I told him I'd shout him out because on his turn 1, he played Neverland, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm not familiar enough with this locations deck. I know of it, but I didn't know that it was this one. And then his next play was another Neverland. And then it was John Silver. And then another John Silver and a Neverland. And suddenly, the game is over. I'm playing Blue Steel, just trying to ramp. I have no answers for this deck. It was incredible. The start of my day was another 0-2, but I was laughing my entire way through it because I had no idea what to expect. And the fact that this $50 deck was in the top 64 of the main event was just amazing to me and exciting at the same time. He's like, this is my first time ever playing it. I got here at 7 a.m. this morning to buy all the cards from the vendors that I need to play this deck this morning, and I got smoked. And it's because this John Silver is just, at the early game, you get him out there, how do you deal with him if you don't ramp to Medusa? Absolutely incredible. I was blown away. I laughed about it. I told him, please listen, I'm going to shout you out.
What's the guy's
well
name?
done.
What was
Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah,
Jerry came to win.
Yeah,
that competitive constructor. He came in and was like, "I'm buying this deck. It's only $50.
Yeah,
find the cheapest vendors here." and I am getting to the top 32. I'm getting those tickets.
I have
That's
no
what he said
doubt.
that
I have
morning.
no doubt that he did because I was blown away by
You
it.
didn't check? You didn't find out?
I didn't. I mean, I saw him around. I should have asked.
Jerry, he's shouting you out on the podcast, but he didn't even have a second to look back and see your results.
Let us know in the comments, Jerry.
Yeah,
Did
please do.
Make top 32
Dude,
in that competitive event? Did it work?
I can actually look it up. Well, you guys, what do you guys think about John Silver? I'll try to find that information for you.
Well, I think in the context of the location deck, it's kind of wild because there are 28 locations. So Alvaro, I'm not going to pronounce your last name correctly, I think. So I do apologize. It's Giroux. But he placed in the top 32. He lost, I think, to a mirror match, if I remember correctly, in top 32. But I mean, it was a kind of there's a much more traditional Amber Steel deck, and he had this kind of location deck. But it's just really interesting to watch.
It was the worst possible Amber Steel deck he could have gone into.
I was gonna say, I really feel like if he had gotten matched against any of the other people in top 32, he probably would have won against them. Because I mean, it was
question.
purple,
I think that's
green, red, blue, the green steel. I mean, like, what would green steel even do against that? Like, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I feel. Hope that, maybe I could discard all your locations, but even then, like, locations are super hard to deal with for Emerald Steel. So I think that honestly, him getting matched into that more traditional Steel song was just so unlucky.
It wasn't even that. The Steel song wasn't even that traditional. I don't even know that it ran wheel or aerial. It was a straight.
Alvin,
I think the deck that they lost to was a straight like Amber Steel like bruiser kind of deck. It had Smee, Lawrence. I think it had Tinkerbell, but it was.
I'm almost
it was
positive
like
it had Tinkerbell.
The only like Steel song list that probably could because if it was much more song focused than like a normal Steel song list, those songs do nothing to those locations. He laughs in the face of Storm Rage On and Strength of a Raging Fire. It was, I think, in the matches we saw in the top cut, it was really cards like Lawrence where you couldn't get any damage on it, and the cards like Smee being able to take out some of these locations. But it's another one of those decks that, like the Queen Sensor Core deck, it's an aggro deck. That's really what it is at heart. But it has aggro tools that just dodge most of the other sort of removal. It dodges all the song-based removal. It dodges all of the like brawl and strength-based removals. Medusa, it doesn't die to Medusa. Locations don't die to Medusa. So it's really, really innovative and interesting. If you think about the current meta, at most, any list out there probably had 2 to 3 location removal spells or abilities in there. Maybe 4 if you ran 2 Hideaway, 2 Cusco. Hamza probably had like 12 in there because he's got a lot of room. Vince probably had 12 as well, just didn't know how to use them quite right. But like,
yeah.
So
checks out.
I do have that math checks out.
I do have an update. Jerry finished in 13th place.
Let's go! Congrats.
4-0-4.
Very nice.
Very well done. And I'm so happy to have been a part of it because, like, literally, I was burnt out after 8 rounds the day before, and I was like, this competitive constructive after that game, as fun as it was, I'm not doing 8 more rounds of it. Not a chance. And he made it fun. He was really cool. I'm happy to see him succeed. I played it again Monday night against Cam Jason, one of our listeners and locals here. I tried it again with my blue steel. Couldn't do anything about it, but I did find what I alluded to earlier. Why I should have flip flopped the days I played my decks. Blurple works just fine on it. Like, you just bounce Fox over and over again.
Yeah.
He was throwing his cards. He was so sick of seeing that Fox come out, get bounced with Snake, Fox come out, get bounced with Snake, just taking out the locations over and over again. But if you're not prepared for that deck, like, it's no surprise that this got in the top 64 because that they're just constantly spamming. It's like the old pirate deck when set 3 dropped. They're spamming locations and making you deal with them, and that means they're not questing. And you're getting passive lore until you're not. So
in a lot of respects, I think that this card has been forgotten since in the Inklands, right? Like I remember folks really trying to make this card work into the Inklands, and it kind of just never really fired off the way people expected. But it was really a good card, so it's really interesting to see now that we've had. Now from Inklands to Shimmering Skies, 3 sets with additional locations. Some of them great, some of them not so great. And being added to this deck to add that value to John Silver. And I'll say, we still don't have yet a be prepared for locations, right? Like we have abilities to deal with locations with location removal, but there's no way to remove all locations as there are with items. Even though I'll find my Platinum doesn't really see a lot of play, it exists. So if items were to, I think, really pop off, you might see that card enter play. We've obviously got be prepared. What?
Microbots, right? Isn't it
that's what I was thinking. I was like, that's why that song exists. Maybe a few sets too early because the microbots coming out in the next set are going to need that kind of wipe.
But we don't yet have that. So if you get a bunch of locations out and stuff, it's like, you may have characters to play on board to swing into those locations, right? But you're not having anything that can like advance the lore state, to quest to get to your win condition of 20. And they're able to slowly get one lore off. And some of these locations that they have in the deck, not only do, every location you get, John Silver gets a buff. So basically you could almost, potentially never be able to destroy him. Or 2, he's then questing for a lot. And then 3, you've got locations where they get, some characters just get better and stuff. You've got what is it here? So I'm looking at the list, like 7 Dwarves Mine. During your turn, the first time you move a character here, you may deal 1 damage to a chosen character. If that character moved as a knight, deal 2 damage instead. Now it's an expensive move cost for 2 to get that effect. When you're running a boatload of locations and you've got a limited amount of characters, it's a good way to kind of effectively deal with some characters on the board, especially say like a Merfolk, or, maybe you just need 1 more damage on a Diablo or something, or you're trying to destroy the Diablo for the shift target. Like there are a lot of really good there are a lot of good ways in which you can use these locations to, maintain your board state with those locations on board, keeping John Silver on board. It's really an interesting deck. And I agree 100% with Andy that I think and Kirsten, had he played any other deck, I think he would have made it to top 16 at least, if not top 8. And I think he ran into the one Amber Steel deck that was actually well positioned to deal with this deck. Because you're right, songs don't do anything to this. The only song that would do anything is Zeus, right? There's no other. Is there any other song in the game that deals damage to locations?
That's what I remember.
I mean, Boom does damage to locations as well.
But it's not a song.
That's an action, yeah.
It's in, but it saw play in the newest Emerald Steel lists. I think Luke had it in his winning list. Zan had it
as well.
Yeah. So I think I don't want to discredit this deck at all. No. I do think locations still are kind of weak. I think we might actually see them get even stronger in this new set. There's been a couple locations that kind of, hint at these probably, silly combos that just sort of win you the game. And so we'll have to see how those play out and stuff. But essentially they're just playing a ton. I mean, they're been set at 28 characters or 28 locations.
Yep. 28 characters and four actions.
It's an even split, right, of these, locations characters. These locations, the vast majority of them are just 0-8 or 0-7 quest for 1, characters. Essentially, they could be treated like characters in that essence. And the gamble sort of that they made is, 1, people are not going to understand this, right? If you play a a deck that no one is playing, you're always going to get that sort of like surprise factor to a lot of people. A lot of the times you talk about like, oh, should I go first in the game or first in the second game? Should I, having the knowledge of my opponent's deck is really useful for the mulligan and things like that. A really, really good deck is going to try and normalize itself on having good cards regardless of the matchup. If you look at something like Zan's Emerald Steel list from Vegas, where he does the spreadsheet on what cards you kind of want in your hand after your altar, you end up seeing that, like, yeah, there are certain cards that are really good in certain matchups or whatever, and you keep them, but you're really sort of looking for the same sort of core of cards. There is no matchup spreadsheet for 28 locations, location rush essentially. And like I said, a lot of the cards currently teched in the meta are not necessarily board based. We've talked about this before, like the types of removal and stuff. Certain cards do a lot better when the removal in the game is very, very board based. Lyle is a card we've focused on in the villain of the week before, where it really works when everyone's trading characters back and forth and things are being banished. If you're not expecting to do that, like Red Blue certainly isn't expecting to do that. They're looking to remove other ways. Even Green Steel is not looking to necessarily do a lot of board-based combat. They're looking to essentially build a board of strong characters that help them remove, the other things without necessarily swinging and stuff, which is why you see Green Steel have trouble with locations, because all of their people can be very impactful in the game, but they don't attack for a lot. They don't challenge for a lot.
Right.
So it's
I just also think
there are cards that they can't, that people aren't expecting to deal with.
Right. It's definitely an aggro deck, and I just think there aren't a lot of location removal tools to help besides characters, right? And stuff. And like you can buff characters, like Blurple might be good into it because you can, do the bounce shenanigans. I think maybe Ruby Amethyst might be good in that case because of the bounce shenanigans as well. But then again, like sometimes you just have to have those cards, and B, like you do run out of the bounce shenanigans at some point, right? You can try to do it as finessely as possible as you can, but sometimes you do run out, and with 28 locations, what are you gonna do? It's like I think probably Ruby Amethyst is probably the best matchup into this. If I were to guess, if you were to play,
I would argue Blurple. Ruby, because you got Maui and Hercules, and if you're brave enough, but Maui, but Maui for sure. But the way that I played my Blurple into Jason on Monday night was like 3 or 4 turns in a row. I kept ramping, and then I just kept Fox Snake. Whatever you put out, eventually you're going to be top decking, right? I'm going to have to deal with it. He'd get up to like 13, 14, 15 lore, and then I just, then I have to just quest out, and get everything else out there with the Elsa to exert the John when he's not exerted, or whoever he just plays, holding those Elsas aside. So whatever you play next, if it's a character, I'm going to attack it, and I'm going to get him vulnerable and just stop you while I build my board up. So I found that to be a good answer, and I wish that's what I would have played on Sunday because of it. But again, Ruby, the Maui is very much the killer in that deck.
I think Ruby is the best, and you have to really realize that, like, every time you put a character on the board, like even if it's a 1/2 broom, right, and they play a Neverland, you can hit that Neverland for 1. Next turn you're hitting it for 1. Next turn you're hitting it for 1, and the next character you bring out is now also hitting for 2 or 3, and the next one, and this type of deck, or a deck that has too many locations, has no answers to it. They are not fighting back, really. So every time you play, maybe bouncing the Fox and the Snake, you're kind of recursing it so you can like get more at a time. But if you just play the Fox and it sticks on the board, that's 4 every single turn, right? When you get to Medusa, the Red Blue, you are gathering this massive board that eventually they play a location, and you're like, this isn't going to survive long enough to even get you one lore. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So
The issue with leaving the Fox on board, at least from in my experience, was the fact that John Silver, he had 3 locations out: Rapunzel's Tower, Dwarf's Mine, all this stuff. And if I leave that Fox vulnerable, that John Silver is just going to take it out with all the resist. It's going to survive as well. So I had to, systematically continue to bounce. Rush with Fox, bounce with Snake, hit with Snake, bounce with Fox.
And this is ultimately why I say that I think Ruby Amethyst is probably better in this matchup.
And you could do the same thing.
But John Silver, even with resist, dies to Medusa. And so like this is kind of the vulnerability of John Silver, right? Is like I actually think this works well when you're putting a board together and you're adding things that with the resist and location lore, because even things like Tink, being able to splash damage, that's not going to work. It's not, and swinging characters, as you said, it's not going to work. But its fundamental, I think, flaw is it's weak to things like Medusa and Tremaine. And honestly, even particularly in this case, Tremaine, because it is vulnerable to the fact that you're running so many locations that you may not have a lot of characters on board. To be able to do that.
Boom.
I think
Medusa hits every time. It's objectively better this time.
Well, here's the thing. Medusa doesn't, when it hits the board, and we're not talking about Medusa here, but I'll just say every time Medusa hits the board, it doesn't necessarily take anything out, but I will say Tremaine does take everything out. It may not be always what you want.
Not everything.
Unless they don't have anything on the board. Then Tremaine doesn't take anything out. But we're talking about John Silver here, Vince. John Silver 100% gets hit by Medusa. Medusa is the better card to go against John Silver. 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
I do think, though, that John Silver is like the big bad of this deck, right? It requires you to use your Hades
any location
goes. It requires it's the one you use your Brunos on, like because you can't trade into it. Like you said, Snakes can't deal with that.
Although the Fix-Up Felix in this deck is actually pretty interesting, which is a card we hadn't seen, which gives locations +2 health. So it makes those locations actually harder. No, just 2.
Just 2. Okay.
I'm looking at the list over here.
It's 2 willpower.
It gives so it makes your locations even harder to remove. But yeah, I mean, I think a location deck looks fun. And I could see why the way people put it together for the competitive constructed. All 3 of you are brave, by the way, for deciding to do competitive constructed on Sunday, because after rounds of Swiss on Saturday, I was like, no.
I was not happy about doing it. I just wanted the tickets.
I was greedy.
Cinderella mat. So
same. I was greedy by the pricing and was like, I can maybe get top 32.
And in retrospect, if they continue to do DLCs the same way they do this, while the competitive constructed is high risk, high reward, it is exactly that. It's exhausting. Where you spend a lot of time. It's best of 2, and there's no top cut. So round 6, 7, even round 8, you're still in this event, and then boom, you lose, and you get nothing.
Exactly what happened.
Nothing. I dropped out after 3, but the one saving thing that made it exciting,
right?
Yeah, you got
you get the participation tickets at the very beginning, though. My first opponent grabbed the participation tickets, shook my hand, said, "You get the 2-0," and left. And I was like, we're off to the races.
Let's go, baby.
And then it was the exact same thing as the main event, is that you're in it. Yeah, it wasn't as great, but then you're still in it, and it wastes your time.
Yep.
You're not like really certain that you are going to do great. You are much better off doing the other scheduled events. There's smaller constructeds. There's the seals. The seal was a lot of fun and can be quite lucrative in tickets. Takes a lot less time too. So, if they continue to do it the same way, I don't know if I'd do the competitive construction again.
I absolutely not. Hold on,
before you start,
Kirsten.
I just wanted to.
Go
on, Kirsten.
Oh yeah, I agree. I wouldn't want to do constructed again. I started out and I was like, okay, this isn't so bad, and then I queued into like 5 Emerald Steel mirror matches in a row, and it was just so miserable. It was awful. I feel like all of the Emerald Steel players just entered that competitive, because the day before the main event, I think I only ran into 2. the entire day, 2 emerald steel the entire day, and I was like, okay. But yeah, like Andy said, it's very high risk, high reward. Like I was doing okay enough in the first couple of rounds, and then it got to like round 5 or 6 where I'm like, all right, I really got to do well, and then I can maybe make top cut and get the extra tickets. But by round 6 or 7, I think I just finally got that loss, which completely like knocked me out of the running. And I'm like, wow, that was a complete waste because I didn't get anything more than what they gave me when I sat down 5-6 hours earlier in the day. It's like I would have much rather done what Andy's opponent did and said thank you for my participation tickets and left, because that was just not. I mean, it's my own fault. It just wasn't any fun. Like I was exhausted. I was tired of playing that deck. I wanted to play something fun, but the pressure was on to get the tickets, and I was like, well, whatever. I'll just play this. It was a mistake.
And Brad for the final word.
I'm glad I did. I agree with all of you guys. It's lessons learned. I agree. I want to take Vince's approach next time and do the fun stuff like the sealeds. That was so much more fun than doing the 3 of the 8 rounds that I was supposed to do, because I dropped out after 3. I played the first round against Jerry, saw this deck in action. I don't regret it. It was so much fun watching it and realizing, wow, that was just a blowout. The second round, I actually got to mill somebody. I met David. He was really cool, but it was a blue steel into blue red. And then halfway through that game, even after milling him, we had to do the second round. And I'm like, I'm not into this today. That was cool. I always like milling somebody. But he's prepared for it now. He got me the second round, of course. But I'm like, it's going to be this kind of pressure all day, and I'm over it. I just did a whole day of it. The competitive side of it, no, I just want to have fun. So I did one more round of that into green yellow and just got obliterated and was like, okay, I'm dropping out and doing sealeds. That's it. But last word on the pirate on John Silver. The reason why I considered him and threw him in the running today is because, as we all said, the locations I think are going to get spicy again next set, and I think with his shift targets and everything in steel that he was forgotten, like you said, and I think he's going to start seeing a lot more play again and very much worth it, because he is absolutely insane to deal with, and I've always liked the card, and I'm happy to see him come back.
Yeah. Well, with that, let us know your opinion of John Silver or the location deck in the comments below, and tell us who you think should be the next villain of the week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, and be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified of our next episode. Join us on our Discord to help us continue plotting our devious plans. You can also ask the villains a question by commenting on YouTube, tagging us on Twitter at Rules of Villainy, or in our Discord. Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.